The battle was already lost. Everyone on the ruined ship knew it. Even if no one spoke it aloud, Captain Elias stood on the broken deck of the human cruiser Resolute, smoke curling around him like the breath of a dying beast. The alarms had gone, silent, not because the danger was gone, but because the systems were too damaged to scream anymore. Fires burned in half-shattered corridors. Metal groaned and buckled. The stars outside looked cold and merciless through shattered glass. He had fought in wars before, but never against enemies like these. They came from the dark edges of the galaxy, silver-skinned giants clad in armor that seemed alive, crystal plates that shimmered with inner light. Their ships were not built, but grown vast living fortresses that pulsed with alien fire. And against them, humanity's proud fleet had been nothing more than dry leaves in a storm. Elias tightened his grip on the railing, blood running from a cut across his temple. He could hear his surviving crew behind him, quiet, waiting. They were soldiers, yes, but also young men and women staring into the face of the impossible. They were waiting for orders, for hope, for anything. Instead, a shadow fell across the deck. The alien warship descended, blotting out the stars. Its belly opened like the jaws of a beast, and from it came a column of light. She emerged then, the one they called Princess Serenia. Taller than any human woman, her form was both graceful and terrible, as though a statue of silver had come to life. Her eyes glowed with a pale fire. Her crown was woven from living crystal, and when she stepped forward, the ground itself seemed to hum beneath her. The surviving crew gasped. Some knelt, some trembled, but Elias only stared. The princess's gaze swept over the ruined deck, the broken soldiers, the wreckage of a fleet. Then her eyes fixed on him. Her voice, when it came, was not shouted. It was calm, steady, and yet it struck every ear like a blade cutting through the air. "You," she said, pointing directly at him, "the one who still stands. You are their leader." Elias said nothing. He held her gaze unblinking. Her lips curved slightly, not in a smile, but in something colder satisfaction. "Your fleet is broken. Your world will kneel. But before the Empire can claim your people, I must claim you." The crew stirred uneasily. A murmur rose. Claim him. What did that mean? The princess raised her chin, proud and merciless. "You will mate with me, human. You will give me heirs. It is the way of conquest. When a world falls, its strongest warrior is taken by the royal bloodline. Your defiance, your strength, these will seed the future of my people." For a moment, the silence was unbearable. Elias could feel the eyes of every survivor on him. They expected him to break, to shout, to beg, or worse, to obey. Instead, he laughed. Just once, low and harsh, but enough to echo across the broken deck. "You think I'm just breeding stock," he said. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "You think that's all humanity is to you. You don't understand us at all." The alien guards shifted uneasily. The princess narrowed her eyes, a flicker of confusion breaking through her icy command. No prisoner had ever dared laugh in her face. No warrior had stood against her words without trembling. Elias took a step forward, dragging his wounded leg, refusing to fall. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes burned like fire. "You want to take me?" he said. "Fine, take me. But know this, princess, I'll never belong to you. Not as your prize. Not as your tool. If you try to chain me, you'll learn what it means to stand against a human. Because I won't bow, I won't break. And if you dare make me yours—" He leaned closer, voice like steel cutting through smoke. "Then I'll claim you instead." The crew froze. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. The alien princess, conqueror of worlds, stood silent, staring into the eyes of a wounded human captain who refused to kneel. And for the first time in her long life, she did not know whether she had conquered a man or awoken something far more dangerous. The light chains burned against his wrists, glowing bands that tightened whenever he struggled. They were not metal. They were alive, threads of crystal that pulsed like veins. Elias had seen shackles before in the prisons of war, but never once that seemed to breathe. He walked through the halls of the alien ship, surrounded by guards who towered over him. Their armor shimmered with the same living crystal, and their eyes carried no pity, no mercy, only obedience to their princess. Every step echoed, the sound swallowed by walls that looked less like metal and more like the inside of some colossal, beating heart. Elias did not lower his head. He carried himself like a soldier, though his body ached from wounds and exhaustion. The guards glanced at him with unease. They were used to prisoners begging, weeping, collapsing under the weight of defeat. But this human captain still stood, tall, even chained. At the end of the long passage, great doors opened with a sound like a sigh. Beyond was a throne room unlike anything he had ever seen. The ceiling arched high above, glittering with strands of crystal light that shifted like stars. The floor was smooth, black as polished stone, reflecting every movement like a mirror, and at the far end, raised on steps of living crystal, sat Princess Serenia. She was radiant and terrible all at once. Her silver skin caught the light like molten moonlight, her crown pulsing with faint energy as though it were alive. Around her stood her court warriors, nobles, advisors, silent, watchful, waiting. The guards pushed Elias forward until he stood before the throne. The chains pulled tight, forcing him to his knees. He fought against them, but the living crystal only grew hotter, biting into his skin until smoke curled faintly from the burns. His jaw clenched, but he made no sound. He would not give her the satisfaction. The princess leaned forward. This is the human who defied me. Her voice carried through the vast chamber, soft yet cutting. This broken warrior who dares to laugh at conquest. A ripple of laughter spread through the court, mocking and sharp. They saw him as nothing, a wounded animal brought before their queen. Elias raised his head. His eyes locked on hers, steady, unyielding, broken. No, you've mistaken me, princess. You can burn my ship, kill my soldiers, chain my hands, but you'll never break me. The court fell silent at his defiance. The guards stiffened, waiting for their ruler to strike him down. But Serenia did not. Instead, she studied him, her silver eyes narrowing as if she were searching for something beneath the flesh, beneath the wounds. You are bold for a captive, she said slowly. Bold or foolish. Do you not understand? You are here because I chose you. Your blood, your spirit, these will be mine. I will take what I need, and you will give it. Her words were cold, final, spoken like the swing of an axe. Yet there was something behind them, something she tried to hide. Elias saw it in her eyes just for a moment, a flicker of something softer, a crack in the mask. He tilted his head. Is that what this is to you? Power? Just another victory to carve into your crown? Her lips tightened. It is tradition. It is survival. My people's line must continue. Our blood must be strong. That is why I demand you. Not for love, not for choice, for the future of an empire. The court nodded in agreement, proud of her words. To them, it was simple. To take the strongest of the conquered was law. But Elias only smiled, faint and bitter. You think strength is in blood. You think survival comes from forcing someone to their knees. No, princess. You don't know strength at all. Gasps echoed across the chamber. One guard raised a weapon, but Serenia lifted a hand, halting him. Her gaze never left Elias. For a long moment, there was silence. The throne room, the court, the guards, all of it faded. It was only her and the human, locked in a quiet war of eyes and hearts. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quieter now, though no less sharp. Then teach me, human. Show me what strength means to you. Show me why your people fight even when they have already lost. Elias leaned forward, the chains burning deeper into his flesh. His voice was steady, low, dangerous. "I'll show you, princess. But know this: if you take me, if you try to own me, you will fail, because I am human. And if anyone will be claimed in the end, it will be you." The words struck like thunder in the silence. The court was horrified. The guards gripped their weapons, yet Serenia did not strike him. Instead, she leaned back slowly, her expression unreadable, her eyes gleaming like twin shards of crystal. For the first time in her reign, she felt something she had never known: doubt, and deep beneath it, something even more dangerous: curiosity. The chamber they gave him was not a prison, though it felt like one. The walls glowed faintly with crystal veins, and the air carried a humming sound, as if the whole ship were breathing. A single bed of stone-like glass stood in the center, smooth but cold, with no blanket, no comfort. Elias sat on it, his wrists still marked where the chains had burned his skin. He expected silence. He expected to be left alone. But the door opened that first night, and she came. Princess Serenia. She did not wear her crown. She did not march with guards. She stepped inside quietly, her silver figure casting soft light into the chamber. For the first time since he had seen her, she did not look like a goddess of war. She looked human, almost curious, restless. Elias did not rise. He only watched her as she moved closer, her eyes fixed on him as if trying to solve a riddle. "Why do you not fear me?" she asked at last. Her voice was softer now, stripped of command, though still carrying that strange echo that made the air tremble. Elias leaned back against the cold wall. His voice was calm, steady, though his body ached with exhaustion. "Because I've fought all my life. Fear doesn't chain me anymore. Pain doesn't stop me. You can destroy my body, but you'll never touch what matters most." Her head tilted slightly. "What matters most?" "Love," Elias said simply. "Loyalty, choice. Those are the chains I let bind me. Everything else, fear, conquest, death, they're just noise." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Serenia stared at him as though he had spoken words from another universe. Her people, her empire, they did not speak of love. They spoke of bloodlines, of strength, of legacy. To her, choice was a weakness, not a gift. "Love," she repeated, almost tasting the word. "Strange. Among my people, love is a story for children, a distraction, a chain that weakens rulers. We are taught only duty. We are taught only survival." Elias met her gaze, unblinking. "Then you've been taught wrong." The word struck her harder than any weapon. For an instant, anger flashed across her silver eyes, but behind it was something else, something she could not hide. A shadow of longing. She turned away, pacing slowly across the chamber. Her steps were light, almost soundless. "I was raised to rule," she said quietly. "From birth, I was told what I must be: cold, unyielding, perfect. Every decision I make is for my empire. Every word I speak is weighed. Every step I take is watched. Do you understand, human? I have never been free. Not once." Elias felt his chest tighten. He had expected arrogance, cruelty, hunger for power. Instead, he heard something he had not thought possible: loneliness. "You gave your order," he said after a moment. "You demanded I mate with you. But that wasn't power. That was desperation." She stopped walking. Slowly, she turned to face him. Her face was still regal, proud, but her eyes betrayed her. For just a second, Elias saw it: fear. "My people's bloodline is failing," she admitted, her voice almost breaking. "Our strength fades with each generation. My father is dead, my brothers slain in battle. I am the last of the royal line. If I cannot pass it on, my empire will crumble. That is why I chose you, not for yourself, for survival." The words hung heavy in the chamber. Elias studied her, seeing the truth at last. She was not a monster, demanding conquest for glory. She was a woman burdened with the weight of an entire empire, desperate to save it. But still, he shook his head. If you wanted survival, you should have asked. Instead, you tried to command me. That's why you'll never understand humanity. We don't give because we're ordered. We give because we choose. Her lips parted, as if to argue, but no. Words came. She stood there, staring at him, caught between pride and something deeper, something fragile. For the first time in her life, Princess Serania felt the walls of her crown cracking, and for the first time, Elias saw not a conqueror, not a goddess of war, but a lonely soul trapped in silver skin. Neither of them spoke again that night, but when she finally left his chamber, her footsteps were slower, her head bowed just slightly, as though she carried not only the weight of her empire, but the weight of a single man's truth. The days that followed were battles of a different kind. Princess Serania came often, sometimes with questions, sometimes with silence. Elias answered her when he wished, and when he did not, he stared at the glowing walls, as though she were not there. This, more than his defiance in battle, unsettled her. No one had ever ignored her before. No one had ever spoken to her without bowing. She tried to remind him of his place. "You are my captive," she said one night, her voice sharp. "You live only because I allow it. Your strength belongs to me now. Your future is mine to shape." Elias met her words with a steady gaze. His body was still weak, still healing from wounds, but his spirit burned unbroken. "You think you can own me with chains? You're wrong, princess. If you want me, you'll have to earn me. Not as a conqueror, as a partner." The words cut her pride like a blade. Her people believed in command, in obedience, in tradition, carved into stone. To be told she must earn anything, it was unthinkable. Her hands clenched at her sides, crystal light flaring in her crown. The chamber shook faintly, the walls humming with her anger. "No one speaks to me this way," she hissed. "No one denies me. You are nothing but a defeated human. I could end you with a thought." "Then do it," Elias said calmly, leaning forward. "Kill me now, if all you want is obedience. But if you truly want strength, you truly want a future, you'll have to face me. Not as princess, as yourself." The silence that followed was heavy. She could have struck him. She could have ended him in that instant, and her court would have praised her strength. Yet she did not. Something in his eyes stopped her, the fire, the defiance, the refusal to bow, even when broken. It angered her, it unsettled her, but more than anything, it pulled at her. The next day, the court began to whisper. Word had spread quickly. The human captain had not yielded, not even before the throne. Many wondered if their princess had grown weak, if her strange fascination with this captive was dangerous. Some even spoke of rebellion, of taking the throne from a ruler who could not bend a single man. Serenia felt the weight of their eyes on her as she walked through her palace. She felt their doubt burning hotter than any enemy blade, and every time she looked at Elias, she saw not just a man but a question she could not answer. Why could she not break him? That night, she stormed into his chamber, her steps heavy, her silver eyes glowing with fury. "You shamed me before my people," she said. "They whispered that I am weak because of you, that I cannot command a single human. Do you know what that means?" Elias sat on the edge of the bed, his arms resting on his knees. He did not flinch at her rage. "It means they don't respect you, and maybe they shouldn't if all you know is how to command." Her hand shut out, gripping his throat, crystal light flaring around her fingers. She could feel his pulse against her palm, strong and steady. Any other man would have begged, choked, cried out. Elias only stared at her, unblinking, his lips curling into a faint smile. "You think this will make me obey?" he rasped. Her hand trembled. She wanted to squeeze, to silence him, to prove her power, but in his eyes she saw no fear, only challenge. Slowly, she released him, stepping back, her breath uneven. "You drive me to madness," she whispered. "No," Elias said softly. "I show you the truth. You don't want a slave. You don't want obedience. What you really want to, don't even have words for it yet. But I do. You want someone who will stand with you. Someone who chooses you, not because they must, but because they want to." The words struck her harder than any weapon. She turned away, her body trembling with emotions she had never been taught to name: rage, shame, longing. When she left the chamber that night, her crown felt heavier than ever. For the first time in her reign, Princess Serenia questioned not her captive, but herself. And in the silence of his cell, Elias whispered into the dark, his voice filled with iron and promise: "I'll never bow, princess. But if you ever dare to open your heart, then maybe, just maybe, I'll claim it as mine." The empire was never silent for long. Whispers grew into shouts, and shouts became blades. The court had watched their princess falter before a human, and for some, it was too much to accept. Pride was their law, tradition was their weapon, and to them, Princess Serenia was already tainted, poisoned by her fascination with the prisoner who refused to kneel. The rebellion began in shadows, but it did not stay there. One night, alarms rang through the living halls of the palace ship, a deep rumble shaking the crystal walls. The rebels had struck, not from outside, but from within. Elias awoke to the sound of battle. His chamber door burst open, and 2 guards fell in, their throats slashed by blades of living crystal. Behind them came warriors dressed in black, faces hidden, eyes burning with fury. They saw Elias and raised their weapons, but before they could strike, a voice cut through the chaos: "Leave him." Serenia stepped into the chamber, her crown glowing, her eyes fierce with fire. Her own people had turned against her, but still she stood tall, blade of living crystal forming in her hand. The rebels hesitated, torn between killing their princesses, prize, and obeying the woman they sought to dethrone. That hesitation was enough. Elias lunged forward, grabbing one of the fallen guard's weapons. The blade was heavy, strange, alive in his grip, but it thrummed with power. He had no armor, no training with alien tools, but none of it mattered. He was a soldier, and war was in his blood. The first rebel struck. Elias parried clumsily, sparks of crystal fire flying, then drove the weapon forward, piercing his attacker's chest. The alien fell, gasping, his glowing blood staining the floor. Another came, and Elias swung hard, the blade shrieking as it split armor. The fight spilled into the corridors. Serenia fought beside him, her movements a blur of grace and fury. Where Elias was raw strength and stubborn will, she was precision and power. Their blades cut together, human and alien striking as one. Rebels fell before them, but more came, wave after wave, their fury endless dot. Elias bled from cuts across his arms, his side, his face. His breath came ragged, but he did not stop. He fought as though the galaxy itself hung on his sword. Watching him from the corner of her eye, felt something ignite in her chest. Not just respect, not just admiration, something deeper, sharper. The rebels finally pressed them back to the throne room. The vast chamber, once filled with whispers and judgment, now rang with the clash of steel and the cries of battle. The court had fled. Only traitors and loyalists remained, their blades clashing in chaos. At the heart of it, Elias and Serenia stood side by side. A rebel commander stepped forward, his armor gleaming black, his weapon twice the size of Elias. He sneered at Serenia. "You are no princess of mine. You have shamed us with this human. Your reign ends tonight." Serenia raised her blade. "Then come and see if I am weak." The commander charged. Serenia met him head-on, their blades striking with thunder. Elias, though half-broken, leaped in to block a killing blow. His arm, screaming in pain as the force of the strike nearly shattered his bones. Together, they pressed back, blow after blow, until with a final strike, Elias drove his blade into the rebel's chest. The commander collapsed. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the ragged breaths of the survivors. The rebellion faltered, their leaders slain, their will broken. One by one, they dropped their weapons, retreating into the shadows. When the battle was done, Elias staggered, blood dripping from his wounds. His vision blurred, and the blade slipped from his hand. He collapsed to one knee. Serenia rushed to him, catching him before he fell. Her hands trembled as she pressed against his wounds, her silver skin glowing faintly as if trying to heal him with her touch. "You fool," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You could have stayed hidden. You could have saved yourself. Why? Fight for me." Elias's lips curled into a weak smile. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "Because that's what humans do. We stand, even when everything falls. We fight, not for orders, but for the ones we choose." Her breath caught. His words cut deeper than any blade. In that moment, Serenia realized the truth. Elias had given her more loyalty in a single night than her empire had given her in a lifetime. She held him close, her crown dimming his tears she had never allowed herself to shed, burned in her eyes. For the first time, she did not feel like a ruler. She felt like a woman, one who had found someone who fought, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And in the silence after the storm, she whispered words no one else would ever hear. "You are mine, Elias, not by command, not by chains, but because my heart has already chosen you." The throne room was filled again, but this time it was not whispers. It was silence, heavy as stone. Every noble, every commander, every soldier of the empire stood watching. Their princess sat on the high crystal throne, her crown glowing faintly, her silver eyes sharp and steady at her side. Standing tall, despite the scars still fresh on his body, was Captain Elias. His wounds had not fully healed, but his spirit blazed brighter than ever. He wore no chains, no bonds. He stood freely, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of a blade that was not human, not alien, but his. The court looked from him to their princess, confusion and disbelief written across their faces. The empire had traditions carved in blood and stone. Never had a ruler declared a conquered enemy as anything more than a tool. Never had a princess allowed her heart to decide. Serenia rose slowly, her voice echoing across the chamber. "My people, my court, hear me." The silence deepened. "You have seen rebellion," she said. "You have seen me tested. You have seen the fire of betrayal in our own ranks. And you have seen who stood at my side when blades fell upon me." Her gaze turned to Elias, and though her face was proud, her eyes softened. This human did not kneel. He did not break. He fought, not because he was commanded, but because he chose. And in that choice, I saw a strength greater than any tradition. The nobles shifted uneasily. Some glared, others whispered, but none dared interrupt. Elias stepped forward then, his voice cutting through the hall, like iron wrapped in fire. "You thought you conquered me. You thought you could chain me, use me, break me. But this," he gestured between himself and Serenia. "This is what humans do. We fight when hope is gone. We bleed when the battle is lost. And when we choose someone, we don't let go, ever." Gasps rippled across the chamber. To hear a captive speak so boldly in the throne room was unthinkable. But Serenia did not silence him. She let him speak. "Your empire thinks strength is in bloodlines," Elias continued. "But real strength isn't forced. It isn't commanded. It's given, by loyalty, by love. That's why humanity survives, every war, every loss. That's why you will survive, too, if you learn what it means to choose." The court erupted into murmurs, some outraged, some shaken, some quietly moved. Then Serenia lifted her hand, and the chamber stilled. Her voice rang clear, stronger than steel. "From this day, Elias is no captive. He is no prize of war. He is my chosen, as I am his. By my right as heir, I declare him not as consort, not as servant, but as my equal, as my mate." The words struck the court like thunder. An alien princess had just shattered centuries of law with a single breath. Some shouted in fury, others bowed their heads in awe. The empire itself seemed to tremble at the declaration. Elias turned to her, his scars lit by the glow of her crown. For a moment, he remembered the first time she had spoken to him, her demand, her command, her arrogance. And now, here she stood, not above him, not before him, but beside him. He reached for her hand, and she took it. Silver against flesh, warmth against scars. And in that vast throne room, filled with rebels, loyalists, and doubters, Elias spoke. One last time, his voice carrying to every ear, every heart. "You wanted to take me. But I told you then, and I tell you now, you can never own me, because in the end, princess, it is I who has claimed you, and not by conquest, not by chains, by love, the strongest weapon humanity has ever known." The hall was silent. No one dared speak, no one dared breathe. In that silence, an empire was remade not by fire, not by blood, but by the joining of two souls from different worlds. Princess Serenia, ruler of Crystal and Crown, had demanded a mate. Instead, she had found something she had never known, in the arms of a man who refused to kneel, and Captain Elias, soldier of a broken fleet, had discovered that even in defeat, humanity's heart could never be conquered. Together, they stood, not as captor and captive, not as ruler and subject, but as equals. And so it was written, two worlds united, not by war, but by humanity's claim, love chosen freely, love unbroken, love eternal. The palace ship was quiet after the rebellion, but it was not peace. The halls still carried the scent of smoke and blood, and the crystal walls hummed with unease, as if the living vessel itself remembered the violence. Soldiers patrolled with heavier steps, servants whispered in fear, and the court avoided their princess's gaze. But in the quiet chamber of Captain Elias, something far greater had changed. He lay on the bed of crystal stone, his body bandaged, his breath shallow. The healers had done what they could with alien medicine, but they warned Serenia that his human body did not respond like theirs. He would live if his will was strong enough. Serenia never left his side. She, the princess who once commanded armies, now sat quietly in the dim glow of the chamber, watching over a broken man. She touched his arm sometimes, lightly, as though afraid he might vanish if she pressed too hard. When his eyes finally opened, she felt her chest release a breath she had not realized she was holding. His gaze was weak, but steady. He was still Elias, still unbroken. "You stayed," he whispered, his voice rough. She lowered her head, her crown casting faint shadows across her face. "Where else would I go?" He tried to smile, though pain flickered across his face. "A princess has an empire to rule. She doesn't waste her time on a dying soldier." Her silver eyes met his, fierce, almost angry. "Do not call yourself waste. Do not speak as if your life is less than mine. You fought for me. You bled for me. You—" Her voice cracked, and she stopped, her breath unsteady. "No one has ever chosen me before." Elias studied her face. He saw no crown, no armor, no cold command. Only a woman, raw and unguarded, her mask broken at last. "I told you before," he said softly. "Humans don't give because we're ordered. We give because we choose. And I chose to fight for you." Her hands trembled. Slowly, she reached for his, her silver fingers brushing against his scarred skin. His warmth startled her. She had touched countless warriors, countless courtiers, but never like this. Never with her heart in her throat. "I was raised to be a ruler," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "To take, to command, to demand. Love was weakness. Choice was dangerous. But when I look at you, Elias, I don't feel weak. I feel. She searched for a word she had never been taught. Alive. For a long moment, there was only silence, broken by the faint hum of the ship around them. Then Ilya squeezed her hand, his grip weak but certain. You came to me with chains, he said. You thought power was control, but power is standing beside someone when you could walk away. Power is choosing. That's why humanity endures. That's why we'll never be broken. Her eyes filled with light, but it was not the glow of her crown. It was something deeper, something human in a body not made of flesh. She leaned closer, her voice trembling. Then I ask you not as princess, not as conqueror but as myself, as Serenia. Will you stand with me? Not as prisoner, not as property, as my chosen. Elias smiled then, faint but real, the kind of smile that reached his tired eyes. Now you're starting to sound human. He pulled her closer, and she did not resist. Their lips met, not as captor and captive, not as alien and human, but as two souls who had finally found each other in the chaos of war. When she pulled back, tears glimmered in her silver eyes. She rested her forehead against his, her voice barely more than breath. From this day, you are mine, not by tradition, not by law, but by love. And though his body ached, Elias whispered back, steady and unyielding, and you are mine, not as a prize, not as a conquest, as my choice. For the first time in her life, Serenia felt free, not because she had taken what she wanted, but because she had given her heart away. And for the first time since the war began, Elias felt hope, not for survival, not for victory, but for a future built not on conquest, but on love chosen freely.